What's going on, everybody?
What's going on? What's a notification? Gang. How are y'all doing? How you doing, Marone?
I'm doing pretty good. Hanging in there, enjoying the weekend. Went on a little hike today, so
Very
doing well.
nice.
How are you?
Dang, I'm good. I'm up in San Francisco. It's a lot chillier here, which is a nice break from the LA heat.
Yes. Well, it is actually chilly here, so you left.
Oh gosh.
Maybe you took the heat with you.
I guess I did. How's everyone doing in the chat? What are you doing? You like this new channel update? It is not intentional since I'm streaming from a different PC. I still have to get everything kind of in check and all set up how we usually do.
Absolutely. But other than that, we do have a lot of stuff to talk about today. Today is one of those wonderfully fun-filled packed Mondays for the Daily Gaming News channel. And for those of you just tuning in who maybe never seen the channel before, I am one of the co-hosts, Marrone.
And I'm the other Kaisa. We host this channel called Daily Gaming News, where we bring you the latest, hottest news in gaming and the gaming space.
Absolutely. So some of the stuff we are going to be talking about today is in esports news. Our esports coverage is going to be talking about how esports organization Faze drops a trailer for this horror film they've called Crimson.
And then we're going to get into the PSVR and how there's a rumor that for the PSVR 2, it could see wireless remote play with the PS5.
Ooh, also, I guess my mic is my mic
I
low?
adjusted it a little bit. I don't know if there's a difference in chat now.
I have my output up pretty high.
I have you about maxed out here.
So then we also are going to be talking about how the Call of Duty Black Ops Cold War beta is already full of cheaters, and they are terrorizing it.
We'll get into Rainbow Six Siege and how it's coming to Xbox Game Pass this month.
2K is under fire because they have added unskippable in-game ads in a full-priced game.
Future Bethesda titles don't need to be on PS5, according to Phil Spencer, so we're going to talk about if that means they're going to be exclusive to Xbox and the Game Pass.
Which is a really interesting conversation. And if we do have time, some of the later ones will be talking about the Oculus Quest 2 owners that are reporting getting banned from using their own headsets.
And how Oculus Go games are going to be discontinued for the Oculus Quest 2, which just seems like bad news bears.
And then there's an IGN's review of Remothered, Broken Porcelain.
That we might get into, but might not have time for. I was like, oh, this looks like a cool horror game. And then the review just like totally tore it apart. And I'm just like, oh, I've seen this story so many times that like there's a game I'm really hyped for that looks really cool. But like once someone gets in the actual gameplay, it's just like a disaster.
You're like, what happened? What is this? Why did the trailer mislead me? Yeah, it's funny. Horror films and horror games can really lead you in with the right type of trailer. And then you sit down and you're like, I paid for that.
Absolutely. Let me check if this if the transitions are gonna go. Oh, I was pretty close. Let's move yours up a little more. Let's see if I can click and drag that to make sure it looks nice. And speaking of trailers, we have a trailer for a horror video from Faze Clan. But first, as always, what's in the mug?
What is in the mug today? I'm coming out of the left field with nothing I've had in the past 3 weeks.
Very nice. Yeah, I guess I'll give no hints. Mine's guessable enough. No hints today.
Well, let's jump right into this first story out of our esports news. Specifically, this is a really weird one. Esports organization Faze has dropped a trailer today or recently regarding their new horror film called Crimson.
And for Crimson, it's been directed by Gregory Plotkin, who directed Paranormal Activity, The Ghost Dimension. The film follows Faze Rugg buying his first multi-million-dollar house and noticing that his new neighbors appear suspicious and warrant some investigating.
So this is the new. This is a new film for Gregory Plotkin, but it's a brand new film for Faze Rugg, who has nearly 20 million followers, and this is his first time acting, doing a feature film that's a horror film, and it is produced by Invisible Narratives, with which includes a soundtrack from Grammy-winning artist Beam. So we have a trailer. We're going to show it and check it out, and let's see how you all feel about it.
Do you have it loaded up?
I do.
All right. 3, 2, 1, click.
Oh, no ads.
Oh, Oh no! Should I wait?
Guys, it is my second night here in my new house.
I'll catch up.
And the power went out. Yup, I gotta do some big boy stuff and find the power fuse. Here it is.
I can't believe these
Hi.
producers are
How
signed
are
on
you?
to
I'm
this.
Brian. I just moved into the neighborhood.
Yeah,
What the hell
I'm
did I
sure they
do?
thought the same thing.
It sounds like clown music. You guys not hear that?
I don't know what Invis team.
The other day, me and Noah and Brian were making s'mores. We heard like music, and it was a taco truck.
It wasn't a taco
Bro,
truck.
it was dead as a taco truck.
It was circus music that we hear every night.
This is the house that I've been like weirded out by. These look like eyes.
Okay.
These look like eyebrows. A nose.
What?
And a smile. We're gonna go check it out.
No.
Yes,
no,
you wanna
no,
eat?
No.
You wanna eat?
Yes.
We're gonna go check out the house. We got the binoculars. We got the in and out. Hold up.
Watch this.
What up, alligator?
Sure.
We're
I'm right here, dumbass.
watching this trailer for this Faze Clan movie.
Shut up. Wait.
Oh, there's another one.
Wait, who's that?
He's in a clown costume.
Who are you living next to?
I don't know. That's what I'm trying to tell you. Do we call the cops or like what? Wow, is
We're not gonna call the cops on people getting out of a car.
Is this illegal though?
I don't. It's not illegal.
We have to check it out.
Wait, what?
We have to check it out.
Oh, shoot, I think I just heard something.
Front door open.
We found us a block away.
You're gonna look dumb when the clowns are here. Lola, come here. Lola!
Crimson is only available for a limited time. Purchase the movie ticket now so you don't miss out.
Let me know when you're done,
Only on
Rowan. I know you're a little
Invis.tv.
behind.
No, I'm done.
Yeah. So that's a new horror movie being dropped by Faze Clan. For anyone who just hopped into the chat, it looks just like a YouTube skit to me. I feel like calling it a horror film is very generous.
Yeah, it does, and it's like 4 comments down. Somebody says that. Who? Yes, Walligator, a legit.
Yeah, yeah. A legit movie. It has the producers from Get Out and The Purge and Paranormal Activity working on it.
So I think anybody that comes into DGN, I'm trying to find the right words. I'm trying to be very professional here in this response. I think people know that we both are actors outside of what we do in DGN. We grind it out all the time, going into auditions, you get callbacks. You put a lot of years into it. It's a lot of effort. When you see someone who just has this, popularity, be able to just generate a feature film, and then you see a 3.5-minute trailer, and it's a horror film, and not one aspect of that did it feel like merited that amount of, attention, funding, and all that stuff. It's only just because this person is who they are within Faze Clan and because of who they are on social media. I'm just kind of sitting there and I'm like, what about all these other folks out there who have way more compelling stories to tell and way more powerful stories to share, experiences, horror films that like Even one that was like the number one film in the world, The Wretched, was this horror film that got notoriety right around the pandemic coming out. It wasn't like phenomenal, but it was good, and it came out when like it was driving theaters and all this stuff, so it got the number one title, which is an amazing feat. But it was a legit movie. Like these were real filmmakers, real actors, a real writer, like all that stuff. And then I see this, and I'm just like, is this what we're headed into? Are we about to see more of this?
I think so. Alligator says that, like, a legit movie, and it's not a joke. It is not a joke. This is a legit movie coming out from Faze Clan. I've heard similar things with like Ninja wants to go into like Ninja wants to go into like film and TV, and a lot of these stars want to go into film and TV and stuff. And I think that's cool if you want to, diversify your portfolio and take on new creative ventures. But it seems just like playtime. It seems like they're playing, making a film. It doesn't seem like there's any artistry here. I was going to say this is probably frustrating for you, Marrone, because you are making a feature film or in the process of it, and to see this, which has this much financial backing and press, and is that masterpiece that we just saw.
It's weird. I mean, for sure, and that's so. I think that was actually happening too when watching it. I was like, I'm trying to get this own film off the ground right now, and Kika and I are trying to tell this story about human trafficking, human smuggling, and raise awareness for this subject matter, which I think is like really important. And I'm not saying like don't make a horror film because horror films don't have importance. But if you're gonna do it, like do it well, like and at least if you're gonna do it in that found footage style, try to find something really interesting to do with that versus a YouTube personality happens to move in next to these killer clowns or supernatural beings, and then they come up in there and they legit don't scare you in the trailer.
I didn't find the trailer creepy at all. And to just read some quotes from Rugg, what he told The Verge, he said he had no acting experience prior to working on Crimson. He was nervous prior to filming, particularly with the idea of memorizing a 150-page script. But he was mostly meant to just play himself, and there was plenty of room for improv. In fact, his nervousness mostly evaporated after the first day on set. And I think there was an actor from, I forgot what TV show, that was signed on to, I think also Faze Clan or different esports org. But if people are referring to Faze Rugg as an actor and I call myself an actor, I think people are going to draw parallels, being like, oh, this is just this Twitch streamer who wants to become an actor versus someone who tries to very diligently like attend lessons and like learn the craft and like take this really seriously and not just play pretend for like a fun for like a fun movie.
Yeah, it's really these are always those moments too where I'm like, what do you say in this regard? Like, how do you react to it where it's the right reaction? Because is like, are we all thinking kind of the same thing? I mean, I'm curious, like anybody who was watching that, if you weren't a fan of that person or are a fan of that person and just weren't a fan of that person, would you go see that? Like, would you go to whatever Invis TV is to go and watch that film? Or is it solely because of being Faze Rugg?
I think I wouldn't even watch that film for fun on its own, just based on that trailer. But knowing it's Faze, I could see myself getting in like a Discord watch party and watching this with other streamers just because it's Faze, which I realize is, I think, a big draw and a big part of the point is that people will just consume it because it is Faze.
Yeah. Yep. Agreed. And I'm just looking at some of the comments, and it's. I mean, most of the comments. Yeah. So, and then you have people like that who are like, I have no knowledge of who Faze is whatsoever. So this would be actually, I'm genuinely curious. I am actually genuinely curious if this whole move for them to get people to go to this one source to watch it is this way of testing. Can we self-distribute content if somebody has a big enough following and community? So if enough of the Faze fans go and watch this film, do they recoup and never have to go through a distributor? What does this do? Does it become disruptive to the industry? It very well could.
That's a good point.
I'm not going to fund it.
I feel like this is also, maybe it was a pitch from Invis TV. Like maybe they paid Faze to make this, so maybe like this isn't even Faze's idea. They're just like going along for this big paycheck because Invis is using their name to bring people over to their platform. I could see that also being the purpose of this.
Yeah, it was very. I mean, I remember when I woke up and saw this this news article, I was just like, Somebody was like, "This looks like it was made with iMovie."
Yeah, I just saw that comment too.
Yeah, and that's the thing Walligator's saying, and that I totally agree with. Yeah, I think because, and like you were acknowledging as well too, because it's Faze, you're interested because of that, and that's really what pulls you in. It'll probably be the same thing for whenever Ninja does his first movie, which I think we're going to see pretty soon. When that's able to happen, boom, it's going to be some trailer, and it's going to be like Tyler Ninja Blevins, and you're just going to be like, all right, here we go. In a world of people with blue hair.
Yeah, that would be a great YouTube skit if you ever make one about Ninja making his break in Hollywood. I'm glad that the comments are also saying that this looks like an extended vlog, so it's not just me, pretending I'm on my high horse in film and TV saying this looks like a vlog. This is also other people saying that this movie just looks like a vlog.
Yeah, totally. I think it's that it's that same notion. If you go into if somebody shows off some art and you're like, this is their version of art in comparison to what somebody might do that takes a giant piece of canvas and puts hours upon hours into learning the technique and then puts that to the canvas. But then somebody just like throws paint on a canvas and they're like, my art is as valuable as that art. And that's when you're like, isn't there a place for us to comment on this? And that happens with games too, right? Like with video games when they come out, if we feel they're too rushed, if we feel that they just aren't actually, they don't live up to what they are, they look cool, but then you get in there and you realize like, I just paid $50 for something that didn't actually have that much effort. Once I got into it and looked at it, it's kind of that same reaction.
So I don't know if we're going to keep anyone posted with the reaction for this. I feel like maybe if there's some like viral comments or this actually like makes some waves, we'll come back to reporting on this. But I honestly just kind of want to clear it out of my memory.
For sure.
Watch some actually good film and TV.
I couldn't agree more. I'm definitely curious what the Rotten Tomatoes is going to be. For I'm curious about that one. What's up, Rixie? What's up, Guff? Your suburban chic background.
Yeah, this isn't a Zoom background. This is a real apartment that I'm in.
This is the actual skyline out back.
Exactly. But our next topic is about the PSVR 2, and there's a rumor that we might see some wireless remote play with it.
So, of course, we take all of what we say when it comes to rumors, especially swirling around the PlayStation VR 2, because there have been so many. But this one I thought was really interesting because it does back up the belief of the wireless headset coming. So, of three platform holders, Sony is the one who went the hardest into emerging VR space with their PlayStation VR headset. And ultimately, it was truly impressive for what it was. But just like the tech itself, it seemed like the world isn't quite just there yet. Though we do have titles that we've talked about that are going to be supporting the headset, like Hitman 3, for instance. Sony has been quiet about what the future holds for VR. And while we don't have anything right now, there has been some digging around that could have unearthed some pretty potentially interesting aspects of the next VR iteration.
Twitter user Lumen reported that apparently there has been code found in the PS Remote Play app that suggests some kind of remote play between the PS5 and the PSVR 2, or whatever it's going to be called, is there. The phrase, "can't use a microphone with remote play when the VR headset is turned on," was discovered. And this user also explains that this would really only make sense for the future headset, since the current PSVR is wired, and the PS5 will have Wi-Fi 6 capabilities for smoother connection. Of course, we have to take this with a grain of salt, considering that this could just be leftover code or be referring to something completely different entirely.
And Sony hasn't said much about their next step in the VR scape, that they only that they do want to make advancements. And while virtual reality still remains a relatively niche tech, and it's still not quite clear if it's going to have that significant future in gaming or not, even with the likes of Facebook and Steam tried pushing it with various degrees of success, at the very least, we do imagine it's likely Sony will attempt to go wireless, which would be very interesting to see.
I really hope that Sony does go wireless with the headset. I mean, the only time I've used a wired headset was, I think, at a convention, but there's already so many, barriers to entry or barriers just using the headset. Like, you need enough space, you need the specs, you have to make sure you don't bump into anything. It's really heavy on your eyes, it's really straining on your head. Like, wires on top of that, I feel like is just another kind of obstacle you have to overcome. So I really hope that there's going to be another wireless headset, at least as like some alternative to the Oculus.
Agreed. I mean, I pulled out the Oculus Quest over the weekend and hooked up to my PC and was using that with the wire. And then I remember taking it off the connection. I was just like, man, you just prefer it wireless. Like there just is a nice preference to that. And if Sony turns out would have a wireless headset as well, all other PC VR headsets can go wireless, but all of them have to use an extra little like battery pack to, continue to power the headset while it's not wireless. And you have some connection ports as well to maintain the signal. So if they can figure out how to do the wireless system like Oculus has done, I think it's going to be a massive success for Sony, and especially for all these PlayStation 5 owners, and for whatever tech or whatever games end up coming out for that tech, that they'll start to be like, I think they could put themselves in the position of conversation when you talk about virtual reality and you're like, well, you have the Valve Index, you have the Oculus, and then you have the PSVR 2. And I think it has that place of being a real serious contender to go from a niche market to more mainstream, just because of who Sony is in the gaming space with the PlayStation.
I think so too, and I trust that the PSVR, that the PS5 has strong enough specs, to support a VR machine. I have to upgrade my PC, and I'm like, I don't want to put any VR to this. It's already, the CPU is already like maxed out. I'm not trying to add anything to this. I also kind of like the idea of having games, separate, or like even I kind of wish I had like a gaming and work computer and like a personal computer, but it's all in one. And so to put VR on top of that, I'm like, I would like, I really enjoy how my Switch is like a different entity than like playing on my phone. Waffle says, isn't latency already an issue with VR? Not the games that I've played, but I don't play a lot of shooters. What do you think, Barone?
Yeah. I haven't experienced latency like what may be being asked of that. When you're playing like a PC VR, it's pretty smooth. There might be latency with a headset that you're using, specifically like when I Oculus Link to my PC VR versus using a PC VR enabled headset right away. Like that is where you could introduce some latency, but specifically, no, most of the games that I've had are fairly smooth and really entertaining.
Right, I've had like pretty good experiences with VR. Walligator asked about the Oculus Quest 2 yet, so we have some news that we're going to get to later, or maybe if we don't have time tomorrow, about how the Oculus Quest 2 is kind of a mess right now. A lot of users are getting locked out of their accounts because of Facebook. People are making new accounts to try to connect to their Oculus Quest 2, and then Facebook says like, oh, this looks like a fake account, we're going to ban you, and they're like, well, now I can't use my Quest 2. Like, great, thanks. And I would just really like an alternative to the Oculus. I am very vocally not a fan of Facebook at all, or Mark Zuckerberg. I tell people to delete their Facebook accounts. I don't want to have a VR headset that might be, I don't know, that it's cameras in your house as well. I'm also maybe just being paranoid, but I'm just like, Mark Zuckerberg is shady enough. I don't want to buy into this if I don't have to.
Totally. And there was something when I actually got on and I had to jump through all these hoops to get my Oculus Quest 1 going. The announcement that pops up is that by the end of 2021, they will no longer support Oculus accounts, and you will be required to switch over, even for your Oculus One, to a Facebook account to use the headset and get access to things. So that was something too where I was like, well, I guess I'll be done with my headset at the end of 2021 because I don't go through a Facebook account to use my headset.
Right, and I mean, I do have an Oculus Quest because I do like how it's wireless. I like how it's all self-contained. If Sony could have something similar that maybe it's wireless, but you still have to connect it to the PS5, I still think that's a lot more fun and a lot more useful. For me, I feel like I mainly use my Quest when I have like friends over and I'm just like, look at what my Quest can do. Like, you haven't tried VR. Like, I like being able to show VR to people. And I do like how it's wireless. I think it's a lot more fun. Maybe it seems more like a party toy the way I use it. But yeah, but that's how I do tend to use it more. And I really want to see some more competition with these wireless headsets and more of a mid-range VR headset that's not the Valve Index, that's not the Oculus Quest, and I don't know much about. I think the HTC or the HP.
Yeah, the HP Reverb 2 is supposed
to be
coming out soon.
I haven't heard much about those yet, and I wonder how those are going to deliver. But if not, I think there's a huge opportunity for Sony to swoop right in.
They do. And if they were willing to, I know people were able to create programs in order to make the PSVR 2 work for PC VR. If Sony slipped it in there that you could just pair your PlayStation VR 2 headset with PC VR with very limited hoops of jumping through, they could see a strong amount of success, because if it's a headset that delivers wirelessly and works for PCVR, you have PCVR users who might get the headset and then entertain getting a PlayStation so that they can get the PlayStation VR experience. Because you have games like Iron Man VR where you have to go and get it from PlayStation in order to play it. So Sony could come out with this type of like hook to their headset, getting more mass appeal if it's not just locked specifically to its system.
I think so too. There's a lot of opportunity there about what's going to happen, about when this is even going to be announced. It seems like the PSVR 2 is very much under wraps, and there's no big announcement coming soon. It's definitely not going to be, a product for holiday this year. Maybe next year. We'll stay tuned to see,
I was
if there's
bummed.
any more news. I know, right?
I wanted more. I wanted more on this PSVR 2. They were talking about it. The hints were there. I guess maybe they're just like, we need you to manufacture these consoles and make sure we can actually deliver on time before we start shelling out. Ooh, look at our awesome new headset.
Right. I'm kind of glad that they didn't try to push a PSVR, another PSVR, if they were even trying to, because there's already so many issues with the PS5 and pre-orders.
That's so true. Yeah. And you know what other issues are carrying on? Speaking of issues, is one where I don't know if anybody got to join me when I played some Black Ops Cold War on Friday, but there was a lot of stuff that took place that just seemed really odd, and I couldn't put my finger on it. And then it instantly hit on Twitter and some from teammates, friends of mine, cheaters in a beta already terrorizing players.
That is just so awful. So year in and year out, there are always players who cheat in every Call of Duty game. We've reported on it a ton, especially this year. Well, it seems like this year they're also starting early. There are already Black Ops Cold War cheaters, even if it's still just in the beta. The Black Ops Cold War subreddit is littered with gamers posting videos of people just laser melting people with various cheats, with wall hacks, aimbots, and the like.
And with the beta opening crossplay against Xbox One and PC gamers, that means console gamers are also seeing the cheaters on their end. Now, while seeing cheaters in online multiplayer games is nothing new, it's kind of terrifying to see these people already using hacks in a game's beta. And hopefully, I wouldn't hold my breath on this, Activision and Treyarch are aware of this, and they're going to ban these accounts once actually proven guilty, and not just maybe ban an account who happens to get reported because they don't want to take a look at if it's whether a real cheater or not.
In other news, Black Ops Cold War, the beta has been extended for another day. So there are articles coming out about impressions of the beta and how good it is, and if there are things that people want to see changed before launched. Black Ops Cold War will launch this November 13th on the PS4, Xbox One, and PC, with the game hitting next-gen consoles as well. What has your experience been with the beta so far? What are your thoughts? Are cheaters everywhere?
There was so much suspicious in terms of playing it right out of the gate. There were moments of being like, wow, that person's gun didn't lock off of my body. Like the moment they locked onto me, they just tracked with me the whole time. And then seeing even more people, like seeing there's one footage of where it looks robotic, and you're like, oh, this is person playing with like really high intense aimbot going on. Oh, thank you so much, Kai, for that tip. Thank you very,
so
very
much. We appreciate you. Thank you.
It was apparent right away. I mean, I think Kane, you might have stopped in and said something about like noticing things looked odd or whatever. And me and Smoke were playing, it's one of my teammates, and he was like, are there cheaters? Like he just said that he was noticing something that was weird. It's a beta, guys. There's no reason for cheaters to be in a beta, but there is a prevalence of cheaters in a beta. And what does that mean for the future of the game?
I'm like, really? And I don't know if I've heard of cheaters in a beta in any game, at least in recent memory. I don't remember this being a thing. It's a beta. You're trying it out because you want to play and have fun and have early access and see what's up. I think this is just so representative of Call of Duty now that it's all just cheaters. I feel like cheating is synonymous with Call of Duty. I personally have no hope that this is going to be taken care of anytime soon. I think it's going to be the same thing as Warzone, where even if thousands and thousands of cheaters get banned, it's still not really going to make a difference. Yeah,
and that's another thing too, is like it won't make a difference, and for them it's like it at least appears, why should they care?
Right.
You know, because somebody's going to still buy the game. They're going to still shell out for the battle pass. Microtransactions are still going to come in. people are going to complain. They're never going to release an anti-cheat, an actual anti-cheat. And all of this talk will just be surrounding this. And people will just be begrudgingly playing the game, knowing that they're probably going to have this experience. And it's just kind of like, when does it become enough for the consumer? When does it become enough for them to actually care? Where is that point? Because we're definitely not there. Seeing cheaters in a beta is a sign that it doesn't seem like they actually care.
It really does, and that kind of reminds me of we talk a lot about harassment in games, and for my recent tweet, I was gonna make another one compiling just like all the tweets of people saying like I stopped playing games because of harassment in voice chat, and just the amount of stories are just rampant. I wonder if there's anything similar with like I stopped playing these games because of the cheaters, because of the hackers. If that really does come out to revenue loss for people that might be spending a lot of money in this game just choosing not to play because it's so bad. Because it seems like it doesn't really make a difference to these companies. It seems like Infinity Ward doesn't care. I don't know if they've done any studies on it, or they just think that their user base is just open to cheating or okay with cheating or happy with cheating. Because you and everyone in the chat who says that they play these games seem very frustrated with these cheaters.
It is frustrating. It's annoying, and to be caught up in bans like thousands of people have gone through. You have the people that actually deserve it, and then you have the others who are just caught up in it. And it's just this really it feels so black and white when it's not, because it's not being handled so black and white. It's being handled with a lot of gray, but then they're making these decisions and judgments with this black and white decision making. And that is therefore just allowing players to sit back and kind of be like, do I want to continue to put money towards this? And when is there going to be a game? And I think that's another thing a lot of gamers are waiting for. Call of Duty's been around for a long time. I remember when OG Call of Duty, which took place in World War II, came out for PC, and it was the competitor to Battlefield, and it was like, an entirely different game than it is now. When is that next game coming out that takes gamers by storm and overcomes Call of Duty, like Call of Duty overcame Battlefield? That hasn't happened yet. And I think there's a lot to be said, like, well, they've kind of made a presence for themselves. But just like with anybody who gets too big, there's eventually a point in which you can fall. And hopefully someone's working on a title somewhere that's ready to, overcome that with a very hard to cheat kind of game, and one that has the appeal like Call of Duty's been able to find.
I do have green tea. Good guess, Kai. I do have green tea today.
Hey,
that's a good point. There's a big opportunity. Similarly, with like a mid-tier wireless VR headset, I feel like there's a big opportunity for a fun game to come in that doesn't have cheaters. Like this. It seems like there's a lot of demand for this. I think maybe you're right. Maybe Call of Duty is getting too cocky. They just think that they're bringing in all this money, all these players, and maybe they're taking for granted that those players aren't going to go anywhere else. Who knows? Maybe there's going to be another game that's going to rise up and be disruptive like Fortnite was, and how that took over Battle Royale. I think there might be a new game to come in, and maybe gamers have just been like waiting for it, similarly to how I've been waiting for like a new MMO. Like all MMO players are like playing the MMOs that are out there, but we're all like, we just want a new MMO, please. Like maybe some of you gamers playing Call of Duty are just like, I'm playing Call of Duty, but I really want something else.
That's so true. That is a topic of a conversation. It's funny that podcast that I do with my brother, the Nerd Jocks podcast, where we were talking about like remasters and remakes, and how there are games that have like happened in our past that if they could just rally back into the space as a remake or a remaster, and they do it right, you could probably see like a swell of interest. Like, I don't know if you ever got a chance to play this game. I don't know if anybody in the chat ever got to play this game, but we talked about this on that episode, which was a game called Twisted Metal. And Twisted Metal was this vehicular combat arena style game. And it got really good. It went, the car game. There was Twisted Metal 1, and Twisted Metal 2 was like crazy good. And then they jumped to Twisted Metal Black, which happened in PlayStation 2. And it was just this super dark story, but just an amazing game. And it was like, my brother, who's the other half of that podcast, was like, can you imagine if they did that, but Battle Royale, where everybody dropped in on a map? You started out with your base car, and then you went around and you picked up your power-ups, and then you were trying to be the last car standing on the map. And I was like, I'm ready for it. I'm ready for it. Like I'm ready for something that calls me to the past, but is this new game that brings me in, because it just feels like a lot of the same. It just
Right,
feels like a lot of
yeah.
the same.
Yeah, and I hope we get something with that, or something happens with these cheaters. It seems like these companies don't care. I wonder if they're gonna, actually crack down on this or not.
Yeah, 100%. And that's somebody, whoever is, whatever developer is out there is hopefully paying attention to this, will piggyback and deliver that game that I think a lot of gamers just are desiring right now, because the space hasn't been shaken up enough recently. I mean, we still the same language. If you think about it, the same titles we're always talking about Fortnite. We're talking about Call of Duty. Like, it's just this nonstop. It's always these same names that we're saying when we're really talking about a lot of what is massively known and what is the massive appeal in gaming right now. I think there's this place of frustration due to just hearing the same thing over and over again. There's a word for that I can't think of, but just after a while, you just are kind of like, I need something new. This has just become
Right.
too much of the same.
Yeah, I think so. So we're gonna keep an eye out. If there's gonna be another game that does swoop in. How you doing, Malice? How you doing, everyone in the chat? But we do have some fun news. If anyone has the Xbox Game Pass, our R6 Siege is coming to your Game Pass.
How crazy is that? I mean, this is a game that has probably been perhaps the most resilient live service game of this past generation. One of these shooters that we're talking about, where as you talk about Rainbow Six, you always know you're going to get some sort of competitive shooter, that's tactical shooter, that's going to be great. And it's going to be even easier now because it's going to join the Xbox Game Pass, and it will hit the Game Pass this week, which means subscribers will also be able to get 10% off of various in-game items, including the game's current Year 5 pass.
The announcement reads, with a thriving professional esports scene and a community of over 60 million registered players, Tom Clancy's Rainbow Six Siege puts players in the middle of a fast-paced, ever-evolving multiplayer experience grounded in the selection of unique operators. With access to dozens of operators, be the hero and choose exactly how you want to approach each challenge you encounter. Through the constant addition of new operators and maps that add to the depth of both strategy and combat, the unpredictability of each round of Rainbow Six Siege sets a new bar for intensity and competition in gaming.
And Rainbow Six Siege Year 5, Season 3, entitled Shadow Legacy, is currently in full swing. And the season adds Splinter Cell Sam Fisher as a playable operative. It reworks the Chalet map and more. Now, the long-promising rework for the game's worst operator, Tachanka, also hit servers recently, so there is plenty new to keep Rainbow Six Siege players busy at this moment.
In other Xbox Game Pass news, Microsoft has announced 3 Tim Schafer-written LucasArts classics. Day of the Tentacle, Full Throttle, and Grim Fandango will be joining the service on October 29th, and you can check out a full list of, there's a ton of new games coming to the Game Pass.
And also, the Xbox Games Pass grants you access to more than 100 games for $10 a month. And you can actually go to their website to find the full list. And also, a wonderful feature is if you are a new subscriber, you can even get your first month of the Game Pass Ultimate, which includes Xbox Live Gold, for only $1.
I think this is great news for Rainbow Six. It's still going strong. I mean, the game is kind of old now, but I feel like there's no... I haven't heard people say, like, oh, I'm bored of Rainbow Six. I'm sick of Rainbow Six.
No.
People are still playing it. People are still all in.
Yeah, totally. I wish, I was a huge Rainbow player, but I was Rainbow Six Vegas. I was Rainbow Six Vegas 2. Siege, it changed the gameplay for me, and I lost my interest in it because of that. So I'd love to see Rainbow come back with the call to what it used to be like when playing. But I've still known players who have just been playing Siege for years, and it still has a nice presence in esports. But when you say, like, man, this game is still pretty old, there are still elements of the game that if they do announce a new Rainbow title, I think it could garner a lot of interest. And the Games Pass, as we've seen for other games that have recently come out to it being available, does help bolster new attention and new users to certain games. And if they are good, that'll grow a community.
It will, and if anyone in the chat hasn't played Rainbow Six Siege, it's a little more complicated than most shooters because you can shoot through walls. You can build up barricades on walls so people can't come through them, or in doorways, and others have to knock it down. I think you can shoot through some ceilings and floors as well, and you can grapple hook and things like that. So it's a little more complicated than most shooters. I played it a few times. I wasn't the biggest fan, but I think it if you know the maps and you get some practice in, this game can be a ton of fun. And I've just heard great things. I didn't realize Tachanka was the game's worst operator.
Oh yeah, I think I remember when I played back on season 1 when I first was trying to get into the game. I was like, this operator is horrible. Put him in the trash can ASAP. So the fact that they finally reworked it, however many years later, I wonder why it took so long to get around to it. But yeah, like Malice was saying, like Sam Fisher is in this game. Yeah, you get to play as him. You get some of his tech as your tech that you get to use in the maps. And for me, I still think that there's a lot of elements to this game. They did, what was it not too long ago where they had kind of like the cops versus robbers heist?
Yeah, they had like a heist event.
So they do these really cool events as well, where if you're like $10 a month to play Siege and over 100 other titles, yeah, why not? It's a game worth getting into and learning to see if you like it.
It is, and I've heard some people, including myself, would really like more of a campaign or single-player mode for this game. We're like, this is really fun, but I like single-player campaigns more. Maybe I'm part of the minority. But you do some in like a training session. You have specific missions, and then it's like, okay, you're off to multiplayer now. And some players like myself are just like, oh wait, that's it. Like I don't get more like story here. So it'd be cool if maybe they added that in the future. I don't think they will, but I'm at least glad that this is coming to the Game Pass. I think that's going to inject a big influx of new players, similarly to how when Rocket League was on the Epic Store, it had like another huge wave or another revival, of players going to Rocket League. I think we're going to see something similar with Rainbow Six Siege.
100%. I couldn't agree more. And I love how Numb was like, I was a Rainbow Six Vegas fan so long ago. I love hearing the OGs like R6 Vegas, like they're like, yeah, Rainbow Six Vegas too. It's like, I know. Okay. All right. King Guardian, I'll go ahead and help you out. You're close. You're on to something there. You're on.
You're getting close. You're getting closer to it. We've got some news that's pretty disheartening for some. It's funny, but also in a sad way, as NBA 2K still has unskippable in-game ads.
So if you turn around and shell out $60, $70 for a game, it might make sense that 2K is going to come under fire for NBA 2K21, adding unskippable in-game adverts. And it was reported by Stevivor, 2K's recently added unskippable adverts into its full-priced basketball sim pre-game loading screens is across all platforms.
So Stevivor shows a video, and there's an advert that runs as the match is loading, and you can't edit your team lineup until the whole ad has run its course. According to Stevivor, the experience is the same on PC even when running from an SSD.
So the advert hit the game just over a month after launch on PC and current gen consoles and ahead of the planned PlayStation 5 and Xbox Series X release. Now, 2K pulled a similar trick with last year's game, a move that was similarly criticized by fans, and it does rekindle memories of the EA's insertion of in-game adverts into UFC 4, a move that the publisher eventually reversed following a pretty large backlash.
2K has a bad reputation for the monetization of its NBA franchise. In August 2019, European video game age rating organization PEGI said it was very aware that NBA 2K20 got too close for comfort to teaching players gambling after it received a complaint about a controversial casino trailer. 2K had released a trailer for NBA 2K20 on YouTube that highlighted casino-style elements of the game, such as a slot machine minigame and a Wheel of Fortune minigame.
And more are voicing their opinions on the insertion of in-game adverts into NBA 2K21. One Redditor even said this: I truly don't know what to do or to say anymore. A monopoly for a single genre of video games, basketball. Honestly, I don't even think there's a way to make me want to play anymore. And that truly upsets and disappoints me.
So another user said, this infuriated me earlier. I saw an ad for Oculus come up and was so dumbfounded I just sat there. Why, when you pay 70 quid for a game, should you be subject to them making more money off of you when you paid for the final product? They're literally making money off of us after we've paid them in full for the product. How is that okay?
And it's going to be interesting to see how this works with the PlayStation 5 and Xbox Series X as two consoles pitched more or less eradicating load times. So this reporter actually was reaching out to 2K for comment. They haven't received anything yet. And those prices are $10 more. So you're now paying even more for the next gen. And you might be exposed to locked advertisements where they just continue to make more money off of you.
I don't think this really happens in other games besides these 2K games that I've heard of. I mean, when I first heard this news, I was like, that's not real. You have ads in your game that you paid for. Like, that's pretty unheard of to me. I could see ads maybe in a free game or in a mobile game. You know, if you're not paying anything for it, sure, put some ads in there. But if you've already bought the game, there's no reason to have any more ads in there at all.
Yeah, and if it was like a free-to-play game, I think you'd understand, right? If it was like NBA 2K21 is free, okay, I got to deal with this 15-second ad before I do my lineup and play the game. Great. But that's not the case. And it's really interesting. Like the one commenter was saying is like, they're the monopoly of basketball games right now. There isn't another basketball game that comes even in comparison to NBA 2K series. So, it's the same end on NFL. If EA went around and turned up and started to throw these ads into Madden, people would be like, well, where do I go for my football sim game to get away from this type of practice? There isn't anything out there really.
And I just hate how it's just like so realistic of when you're actually, watching basketball. Yeah, you're going to be watching ads. But if I'm going to be playing, in these games, I don't need to also take ad breaks. I mean, we've already seen with this gameplay, there's already some snippets of like, there's like a Ruffles logo or like mobile is a sponsor of this. And there's already, so many brands that are being, thrown in your face in these games. It just seems like way too much. It kind of reminds me of Hulu, if anyone uses Hulu in the chat. So Netflix doesn't have any ads in it, but for Hulu, you have to watch commercials, and also when you even like pause a show, you'll see in the overlay in the pause screen, there's an ad in there too. And apparently Netflix was saying that, they make more money from subscriptions than they would from ads, so it's actually beneficial for them to not include ads. I hope more companies maybe consider that, or maybe see a way that brings more value and more revenue without worsening the customer experience. Because if I paid for a game and I got an ad in it, I think I might just Alt F4.
Yeah, I would hope to see more of the community Alt F4 in retaliation to this happening, and what is something that we, the users, shouldn't be exposed to if we're shelling out full price for the game. Again, if they turn around, they change their business model, and they become a free-to-play experience. Okay, it makes sense. We get it. But outside of that, this isn't something that should be happening. I think all gamers can agree on that, because we don't want to see it, as some people were saying, they're going to just basically make us get used to this, and it'll become the norm. We don't want this to become the norm. It's definitely something we're trying to avoid.
We don't, and I think that this is different from what we were kind of talking about or kind of teasing with Warzone, that like if there were like movie posters in the Warzone map, like that might be kind of cool because it's part of the environment and it's not in your face as much. But if you have to stop and wait and have to watch an ad before you can get to the next part of gameplay, I think that's way too much. I think that's crossing a line.
100%. And into our next story is kind of one where some people might say this is crossing the line, because when you make a big acquisition like this, there's a lot of players out there that goes, well, what does that mean for me when I don't use that tech that looks like it's going to happen? Because Phil Spencer has said recently that the future of Bethesda titles don't need to be on the PlayStation 5.
Last month, Microsoft announced the acquisition of ZeniMax Media and its subsidiaries, including Doom, The Elder Scrolls, and Fallout publisher Bethesda. While Microsoft hasn't detailed its release plans for Bethesda titles in the future, Xbox's Phil Spencer says that the price of the deal isn't forcing any decisions.
So the acquisition cost Microsoft $7.5 billion and is expected to close soon. But Microsoft has said that existing exclusivity deals for games like Deathloop and Ghostwire Tokyo, which are on the PlayStation 5, will not be changed. However, the future of Bethesda titles is less certain, with Microsoft previously stating that it would determine released platforms for games on a case-by-case basis.
Spencer, speaking to Kotaku, didn't elaborate on that stance, but did mention that Microsoft has no obligation to release games on platforms it doesn't control for the financial aspect of the deal to make sense.
So he says this, he says, we have xCloud and PC, and Game Pass and our console base. I don't have to go ship those games on any other platform other than the platforms that we support in order to kind of make a deal that works for us, whatever that means, he said. And this was him in response to being asked whether Microsoft will need to sell The Elder Scrolls 6 on PlayStation 5 to recoup costs.
Although Spencer doesn't outright say whether future Bethesda titles will be multi-platform, it does seem clear now that Microsoft has the flexibility to decide that without having to think about the cost of the publisher purchase. It has also released Microsoft-funded titles on competing platforms, most recently with Ori and the Will of the Wisps on Nintendo Switch.
So Spencer does mention in the same interview that he doesn't see the strategy as sustainable. Combined with Obsidian Entertainment's output, as well as Playground Games' Fable reboot, the Xbox Series X and S are shaping up to be RPG powerhouses. Now, when we'll see the fruits of those studios' labors does remain to be seen.
Elsewhere in the interview, Phil Spencer shares his thoughts on the differences between the Xbox Series X and S, saying that he believes the latter will eventually be the best seller during this coming generation. And we've read articles and kind of reported on some articles with some experts saying that they don't think the Series S will do well, but Phil Spencer thinks that it will. So the Xbox Series X and Series S launch on November 10th, which is 2 days before the PS5. As some of you know, there is a difference in specs between the X and the S, and for the PS5 and the digital edition, only the disc drive is the difference between those consoles.
I think this was a concern we had with this acquisition happening is what does that mean for the PlayStation owners out there with some of these games? Like, say you've played your Oblivion, Morrowind, Elder Scrolls Online, Skyrim experience, all on PlayStation. And now it's like the Elder Scrolls 6, it's going to drop. It's here. You're really excited and you don't get access to it. So now you've got to shell out either money for a gaming PC or shell out money for the Xbox Series S or X to be able to play that game. Wouldn't you feel a little like this didn't have to happen, but the only reason this happened is because these acquisitions were acquired and now I'm the consumer am not being forced to pay $50 to play this game that I've paid and played for on the same console for all these years. Now I have to actually switch over to this new service and new technology in order to be able to play it. I could see people getting upset.
I could see that. I wonder, how people are going to react to this news. I mean, I've played Bethesda games on PC, so this doesn't, really affect me. But we've seen, articles saying that Microsoft wants people to play its games. This isn't really, a plan to kind of monopolize everything and kind of pull an Apple where it's like you have to play our games on our platform. They just want people to play their games in general. But this news makes it seem like they are trying to, consolidate that people do play their games on Xbox devices or on, Windows devices. And I hope it's not the start of a trend for them to make everything exclusive to Xbox or exclusive to the Game Pass. I really hope that we see titles like Ori and the Will of the Wisps go to the Switch, instead of forcing consumers to have to play on a certain, on a certain medium here.
Yeah, and there's something to be said about how like there's certain PC games that you just can't go and experience elsewhere because you have to have a PC in order to play them. I think it's more of this is focused on the titles in which years have gone by and you've had players from all different types of platforms be able to have access to them. And then now to remove possibly that platform from it. Like Guff's comment on Sony with Spider-Man. Sony owns Spider-Man, the intellectual property for film and visual entertainment, I believe. So in that medium, they carry those rights over. That's always almost been in that space. And I was just about to ask this, like the crossplay aspect that Walligator was bringing up is like, maybe you can still have it be, get certain features and certain add-ons and things to have it on PC with Windows and Games Pass Ultimate, or have it on the Xbox Series X, but you have at least the base game that people can get, the DLC that everyone can get on the competing software or the competing hardware. Maybe that's where this should go to. But I don't think he was outright saying what we're assuming, but he did use very specific language that does leave that open for interpretation.
Right, I'm like, I hope that's not where this is going. I think that's a good idea with, having maybe the base game, open, but having, the premiere version only on Xbox or PC.
Yeah.
That reminds me of Among Us and how Among Us has been driving a lot of mobile downloads. But if anyone's ever played Among Us on mobile, it kind of sucks. It's really hard to do tasks. It's hard to move around. It's
Yeah.
not nearly as, as easy or exciting as it is on PC, but people are still downloading it on mobile. It's still, wildly popular. And it's really successful. So I think it would be in their interest to, make this available on other platforms, but it could just be, a downgraded version or maybe not the optimal version or ideal version. But if people, aren't going to be able to buy an Xbox anyway, or maybe they can't afford to subscribe to the Game Pass or something like that, but they have access to PlayStation, at least that's adding some more revenue to Xbox that they might not have otherwise had.
Yeah, that's true. I was taking a look at some of the comments here, and I think titles that have always been exclusives to certain platforms or publishers, I understand it. It makes sense, right? When Microsoft Studios says we own Halo, anything that's Halo will only exist out of Microsoft Studios. That's what we've experienced since they were acquired by Bungie. That's been a thing that has had several years of users going through understanding what's necessary. I think the element here specifically with Bethesda is Bethesda has been a across the aisle type developer and distributor for games and platforms, that this is now kind of like, oh, maybe it's not going to be the case anymore. And we're going to have to start getting used to that, where it's like, hey, like on there are certain shows that you're not going to get access to with Netflix, but you'll get access to with Hulu, or you'll get access to with Amazon Studios. And if we're starting to shift into that space with gaming, what does that mean for games? How does that mean for how we're consuming games? Are we at the point where it's just streaming services only? Like, there's all this stuff that I think it's just, I think because it's unknown, and it's a future that isn't necessarily going to be done with the consumer in mind.
Yes.
Adds a lot of like resistance to the thought.
It does,
At
right?
least for me.
And no, I think the key difference here is, instead of like Fable, which came out like on Xbox and has been, a Microsoft title, that this is, Bethesda was kind of its own entity here. I recently tried Xbox Game Pass for PC. I downloaded Blair Witch, and I actually was pretty happy with it. Pretty happy, with Xbox Game Pass on PC. It's a little kind of slow to load. I don't know if that's the program itself, but the game downloaded more seamlessly than it does on Steam, which I feel like I always have problems with. And I was just kind of like, this isn't like EA's Origin. I'm okay with using Xbox Game Pass on PC. Thumbs up.
They do a very good job with that. And yeah, I could side with, like, does it at least go to PC, like, for everyone?
Right.
If it's one of those things where it's like, well, look, we're going to be locked to the Xbox and to all PC. You don't need the Games Pass in order to access it or whatever. I think it's just that element of like, are they going to lock it to having to sign up for the Microsoft services in order to play the game, when I never had to do that before, and that concern. There's a lot of speculation with this, and I do hope, at least Phil Spencer seems like the kind of person, with the amount of buzz kind of surrounding this, that he'll come out and he'll talk about it a little more. He does seem to be that kind of person where it's like, oh, let me make sure I clear up anything that didn't come across as true or to the reality of what it is. But until we hear that, we're left here like, what's going to happen, guys?
That's true. I feel like Phil Spencer isn't the type to kind of like hint or like tease at things. He's just like, oh, well, we actually don't know yet. We're leaving the door open. We don't know if it's going to be closed anytime soon. I think that's kind of what he's doing here. I don't know if, Microsoft or Xbox themselves has made a decision, but maybe they're just thinking like, for now, in the current landscape, we don't see a reason to bring this over to the PS5. We'll see what happens.
We will see what happens, but that does bring us to the end of the Daily Gaming News Hour. The stories that we'll be pushing to tomorrow are talking about that Oculus Quest 2 and how owners are getting banned from using their headsets due to this unfortunate incident of trying to log in with a Facebook account.
Also, how you're not going to be able to play Oculus Go games on the new Oculus Quest 2. Not going to lie, I didn't know the Oculus Go existed until I read this article.
And then we're going to be talking about this horror game that Kaisa was really interested in. And I love this as well, too, is that once you finally get a review, you're like, oh, that was the actual experience. I guess I'm glad I didn't pay for that.
I'm glad I didn't buy into the hype. I wonder how many horror games are going to kind of have this treatment, because I was really excited for Blair Witch, and now that I'm playing it, I'm like, this is Blair Witch? Okay,
Yes.
I'll finish this game, but I don't know. To kind of, manage expectations for any horror games you might be playing this Halloween season. But thank you so much for joining us today. You can always submit items to our mailbag, topics, suggestions, questions you have for us. What was in your mug, Marone?
Actually, it was great. I'm seeing Kai go through throwing in all these guesses, and I was like, bound to guess it, right? Where is it at? I had myself a lovely watermelon LaCroix. So unfortunately, the watermelon wasn't guessed, but until next time that I put watermelon LaCroix in my mug, it goes to us.
Nice. I didn't even know that there was I don't think I even knew there was a watermelon flavor to begin with.
It's so good. It's my favorite. It's literally the best. Oh, it's not on Google?
Wow.
Yes.
Nice.
Yes.
Nice.
That's why. But thank you everyone so very much. Everyone dropping in and watching, liking, following, subscribing, donating, all of you amazing human beings. Like Kaisa and I always say, we can't do this show without you. So thank you for continuing to support us.
Thank you so much for joining us. You can find our VODs on Twitch, also on YouTube, and we'll be running reruns. If you're watching a rerun or a VOD, we are live from 1 to 2 p.m. every weekday Pacific time.
For daily gaming news on October 19th, 2020, which is, by the way, one exact month away from Cyberpunk 2077 for all you Cyberpunk fans out there. I am Marone.
I am Kaisa. Thanks so much for joining us, and we'll catch you next time.
See you next time, everybody.